back at the workshop, and to be fair, I've been here a few days on and off without filming anything. So there's quite a lot to update you with. Firstly, that is my engine. Wow, that was the mock-up engine. I removed it so I can finally give everything a bit of a clean and a paint. So I have, and now it looks pretty good. Obviously it's not meant to be a show car, I just wanted to make it clean, so all I've done, cleaned it up. Any tiny bit of surface rust I rubbed down, but generally there wasn't any, it was just dirt. A lot of it, which isn't really visible, like down the back here, I've mostly painted with grey stone chip paint, which is a heavy duty paint that don't come off easy, rather than silver. Things that's more noticeable, obviously I've touched up in silver if need be, but you know, most of the invisible shit I've done it in that paint because it's a lot harder wearing. But it's clean, it's tidy. I mean, like this had like years and years of dirt on it, so all I've done here is literally cleaned it, and all I did to clean it was some tissue and some fucking fairy liquid. I didn't do any car cleaning stuff, I literally gave it a scrub. But all looks really good now, so job done. Engine out, like we've said before in videos, it was literally 5 minutes. Put that table, well, put the car in the air, roll the table under it, drop the, you know, drop the car back down so it sits like that, and undo the bolts. 2 there, 1 there, 1 there, lift the car back up, it was out. I mean, I did it on my own, 5 minutes. It's fucking beautiful. So yeah, this is how this is. That's the air filter position. You can see it a lot better now the car's not got an engine in. It is tight. I mean, like, look, that couldn't fall out if you wanted to. It takes some serious wangling to even get it in. Another thing, I don't know if I can show you. Don't think. I don't know if you can see that. But the engine mounts are TRD ones. Whether that's like standard on the Jap import ones or something, I don't know. But they've got TRD stickers on them. So they are uprated engine mounts, I guess. Fuck knows. Maybe that's an import thing. Maybe that's, I don't know. I don't know enough about these cars to know. Doesn't really bother me because the mounts even in Thomas's are perfectly good. So if these are even better, then fucking happy days. But it's not anything I care too much about because they were fine anyway. But what I did do, just because it was one of those why nots, is I filled the mounts, well those two, that one you can't really because it's solid anyway. I filled those 2 mounts with what's basically Tiger Seal. I used some black polyurethane sealant, which is like a cheapy way of making stiffer bushes. So although it won't make them like, you know, rock solid, they're still rubber, it just stiffens them up a bit because obviously these they've got voids in them, so you know, you've got rubber then air and it softens them up a bit. I've basically just filled the voids up. Not going to be perfect, but whatever. And yeah, that is the engine bay cleaned up. I need to make the mounts for the oil cooler, but this is the approximate position it's going to be, somewhere around there, which gives me room to get to the rear lights and change the bulbs and shit, but it also has correct airflow and easy pipework routing. I've not painted the anti-roll bar look, and the reason is, well, it's a stick thin piece of shit, but one of the best upgrades you can do on these cars, and it's what transformed this, is some better anti-roll bars, and I have them over here. I have uprated front and rear white line anti-roll bars. Thomas's car is on standard shocks, standard springs, but proper anti-roll bars, and it's fantastic. And that's the thing, this, I'm not going to change the shocks, maybe in the future, I don't know, but for now, no way. I've got uprated anti-roll bars and standard shocks and it'd be fine. If anything, some people say change to the standard but made by KYB ones, again, they're like 50 quid a corner, I think, or not even that, 25 quid a corner, I can't remember, it's cheap anyway, and even they're meant to be like really good. Thing is with me, just because I do, wow, the car's looking quite smart, so a bit for looks, in all honesty, I have got these Team lowering springs for it. They're meant to be, I've seen pictures, they, you know, it drops it down nicely without being shit. I don't think it's gonna stiffen it up, and I don't think it's gonna really improve the handling. Fucking hell, I might knacker up the roll centre a bit and make it worse handling, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, look, it says some, what's it called? I can't be bothered taking off the sticker, but stylist something, dress up master, there you go. It's clearly saying it's for looks. So yeah, I'm not lowering it to make it fucking better handling. This is literally dropping it down a bit on standard shocks to make it look cooler, nothing else. This is all the turbo setup removed from the car for now, all my fancy wrapping. Looks good. I hope, well, we'll see once it's running, that it stands up to all the shit of heat and everything, but we'll see. Still need to clock the turbo, which I keep forgetting to do. This is the engine. All I've done is give it a clean, basically. Wire wheel, clean off all the crap, and give it a quick blast of satin black just to make the block look a bit less grubby. The head, I've just cleaned it, it's just bare aluminium, but looks tidy enough. That's obviously the inlet. Like I've said before, for now, because these engines are so cheap and plentiful and good anyway, I'm putting this in completely uninspected. You know, just send it. These engines are peanuts, so if this one breaks, I'm going to be building another one anyway. And to be honest, knowing what I'm like, and I'm constantly thinking about it already, I'm going to be building another one of these with decent rods and decent exhaust valves and a bigger turbo and a 1,000,000 PSI boost within weeks anyway, so whatever. Need to take the gearbox off partially to clean it up, because obviously it's grubby, but mostly so I can weld the diff and I can fit the clutch and flywheel, but you know, easy. What else? Lots of stuff, because I haven't filmed anything for ages. I've finished the cooling pipes, you know, the charge cooler pipe work. It looks like a big twirly whirly mess, but there's a reason for it being like this. Those pumps, and just pumps in general, it flows really good. They're very, very high flow pumps, but they don't like working against pressure. They flow well at low pressure, at none ideally. So any restriction fucks up how they flow like wildly. And this pipework's only 19mm versus the pipework on the pump, which is like 30 odd. So it's not, you know, it's not ideal straight away. So I wanted to keep all the bends as sort of fluid and smooth as possible. So you can see, look, all the bends are quite, you know, there's no big sharp turns just to make it all neat and tidy. This is purely about flow, because don't forget, nothing, this isn't taking up room, it's going to be used for anything else. So I had all this room to work with, so I wanted to keep everything so it's all smooth. So that's how all of it is. How everything runs is purely for the best water flow and the least restriction to that. I had to cut down some of my vent purely because the way I'd put these pipes, the vent was going to hit it. It makes no difference to how it operates, but it just allows me to do that. So, and yeah, I've sealed where it goes through the bulkhead there. Inside the car, I have finished all the back with the charge cooler shit. So inside, The charge cooler pipes run through there. Obviously it'll be hidden by the carpet. Runs along there, you can barely see it. This is the charge cooler fully mounted in its final resting place. It will have to be taken off again just so I can weld that pipe to it, but you know, apart from that, nothing. The rest of the inside is all painted. I have got some hardtop mounts on the way, which will basically permanently attach the hardtop to the chassis. Another very important thing, tyres. I wanted to stick with the factory 15s on these because A, I prefer little wheels, B, they are fucking light. As soon as I picked them up, it's like, oh yeah, they're good. And I think they look quite smart too. They're just 5 spokes, and I like 5 spokes. But I wanted decent tyres. I didn't want to run massive tyres because while you can on these with bigger arches, as Thomas has shown me this, and you can go even wider than this, no bother, with bigger arches, on the standard arches there ain't much room until you're at the edge. And I wanted grip with minimal weight, so I got the stickiest, realistically stickiest tyres I could get without being massive and still being road legal. And they are these fuckers. Also, stickiest tyres that didn't cost £1 million because I'm poor. So these, I've ran these before, so they're well proven to me. They are Max Sport RB5 F3s. They are, despite having tread like that, honestly E-marked and road legal. They're tarmac rally tyres. And I've ran these on my Cosworth Engine MX-5 back in the day, and they are fucking good, and they're really cheap. You can choose compound as well. Being a rally tyre, they do soft, medium and hard. I chose soft, and they are soft, mega soft. So how long they last me, I don't know. But I thought they were really cheap, and this car's light, so I'm going to start with soft and see how it goes. But yeah, I mean, they were literally half the price of a set of R888Rs, for example. Size wise, they are 205/55, I think. So yeah, wider than standard tyres, but not that wide. Plenty for the standard wheels, but a shitload of grip. They're exactly the same tyre size I ran on the Cosworth MX-5, and that was making, wow, 280 odd horsepower, and wow, 280 odd horsepower and probably lighter than that, and it gripped amazingly. So yeah, they're perfect really. And it's got, I don't like real skinny sidewalls either, and these obviously aren't, they're 55s. So I think it should look pretty good. Oh, in other news, Thomas has been getting on with finishing the S14. So it's got all the lights, all the mounts. It is pretty much done. It's got all the rear mounted rad with cut out floor, like a lot of these FD cars and stuff these days. But yeah, it's a serious bit of kit, and now it's finally sort of ready to roll. He's going to give it a good clean up and stuff, and then it's going to end up for sale. Because, well, the money for MR2 stuff's more important than this awesome thing just sitting here doing nothing. So, and also he's got other crazy ideas as well, like this compound 19 TDI setup, which has already been mocked up here. So, yeah. Lots of craziness coming soon. Little update, just removed the gearbox from the engine, pulled off the flywheel. It's a standard dual mass, but it looks really good condition, so I'm keeping that because it might be useful in the future, but it looks like it hasn't been on there that long, to be honest. But more interestingly, the crank itself, the end of the crank where the flywheel sits, looks fucking brand new. Like, still got the QR code on it and all that kind of stuff. It's like, it looks like it's literally just been installed. So, and I'm pretty sure this engine is just an unopened engine. Like, looking at this, you know, Thomas said looking at the sealant, it's like the sump's never been off. And I've looked at the dates on the engine, and I'm pretty sure it worked out to just be like a 2002 or whatever engine, not like a newer one that's been installed for any reason. So the fact it's clean and tidy is just a bonus. I think it's probably, hopefully, just a fairly fresh one. So good news, hopefully good news. For all I know, it's fucked, but it does, all signs so far says decent. Next little job is to clock the turbo. Basically, the compressor and turbine sides are in the correct place, but the turbo oil feed and return needs rotating 90 degrees. Basically, this faces up, so this also needs to face up. At the moment, it's facing right out to the side, which is obviously no good. This job's pretty, well, on any turbo with a big Circlip clamp like this, which is a lot of hole sets, this job can be a right pain in the ass. It's basic as hell, but Circlips on turbos are strong, and because they're so big, and they are awkward. So doing it with some normal hand Circlip pliers can be one of the most infuriating jobs in the world, as it slips off over and over again and so on. And to be honest, on a lot of them you physically won't be strong enough to do it. On some of them they've got like big tangs that poke out, which you can get mole grips or something and compress them to get it off. But even that can be wildly annoying because the tangs face in, so you'll end up doing it 1,000 times with the mole grip slipping off until you finally get to it. But, and I think I've shown it on videos in the past, I remember people mentioning on the comments section, you know, what is it or where is it? This thing is a Circlip remover tool, and it's the best thing if you work on big Circlips. If you work on, to be fair, if you've got a whole set turbo that you're ever likely to fucking touch, that's a Circlip one. So any of these 200 series, 300 series, 400 series, everything up to about HX50, anything smaller than that has got Circlips. You need one of these, it's worth it. It's not particularly cheap. It's made by Sykes Pickavant, which is an expensive posh name tool company. The part number seems to be 02830. I think there's not, and then 900, but it looks like that. You'd find it in their catalogue. It ain't cheap if I remember right, but honest to God, it's worth it, because with this, you pull it in, wind the handle, it never slips off. You'll do it in one go in a couple of minutes. And honestly, anyone who's fucked about HX35s or anything, getting these off, sometimes if you're using anything but that, it can take fucking hours of frustration and you'll want to throw the turbo at the wall. But this, dead easy. So I'm going to quickly take off that, which is a 10mm bolt that holds the turbo inside on, this clamp, and then I'm going to pull that off and reclock it and go from there. Here's another thing you got to do on a lot of these smaller turbos. I think all Mitsubishi TD04 based things are like it. They've got a locating pin, look. Other turbos have as well. I think HY35s and quite a lot of them have. And basically this locating pin is so when whoever builds them, they get the angles correctly. So there's one on the compressor side, one on the turbine side, and it's basically so the core is always in the right orientation. But when you're modifying them for aftermarket use, that you know, it stops you rotating it. Because on most turbos you could loosen the clamp and just rotate it without removing it. But on these you need to remove that first. But luckily it's just a pressing pin, so 99% of the time you can just get some mole grips and pull the fucker out. So let me try. There you go. little tiny pin. That's all it is. Sometimes that was quite tough. I had to do quite a bit of wiggling then. Sometimes you can practically pull them out with your finger. Sometimes, especially if it's a used turbo, it's practically impossible to get out, but in all honesty it don't matter. In all honesty, if you can't get it out, just get a sharp chisel and a hammer and just whack it and it'll just break off clean anyway. So either or, but pulling it out is a nicer way of doing it. But that can be relegated to the dustbin. And now I'm gonna get off the Circlip. So yeah, with this, rather than have to battle everything, you literally put the pins in, turn the handle, and it will compress it until it's shut, and you can wiggle it off and job done. Oh, I'll tell you another little tip which I'm going to use this time. You don't always have to with these, is get a thin screwdriver or something. When you've made a gap, put something in there like a screwdriver, and then if and when it pops off, and sometimes you can pop it off deliberately because it'll, you know, budge everything else, it won't go back into place. It'll be stuck on a screwdriver and it'll come out. So I'm going to quickly get a little screwdriver to whack in there. So I've jammed that in there, and for some reason this side don't want to come out so easy. So all you really need to do now is, now that's in there so it makes that impossible to come out, is generally now if I loosen this again, this side will come out and it'll pretty much spring the whole lot out. So let's have a go. There you go. That being there allowed it to pop out. Right, so Circlip has budged. Now this bit is a bit annoying. Well, it's not annoying, this bit's easy, but you just got to be careful. Because unlike a lot of turbos, which honestly a lot of them leak from the factory. A friend of mine's, he had a Garrett GTX 28, and when we smoke tested it, it was leaking badly from the compressor housing. And that's because most turbos are just metal to metal contact. No seals on the compressor housing, and yeah, they don't always leak, but they often do as well, and his one did badly. These have got a rubber O-ring, which is good and bad. It's good that it seals, there's no leakage. It's bad that it can be a bit of a fucker to fit properly in and out without either getting it wonky, damaging the O-ring, or, which I've done on these before myself, pull it in with a bit wonky but also with too much force and damage a compressor wheel by hitting against the housing. So I've got to be careful on this to not make that mistake again. Wiggle it. If that don't work, your best bet is lightly tap it with a hammer, but that's where things go wrong, because obviously if you knock it clean off with a hammer, that's when it probably comes off at an angle and you damage a wheel. So generally loosen it with a hammer, light taps, and then get it off with your hand. But let me attempt it and you'll either see success or me needing to buy a new turbo. And there you go. Worked perfectly. Very gently, and it was off. That's the rubber seal, look, the rubber O-ring, which is good because obviously these can push some big PSI. So you know, these can run like 3 bar on the right application. So not leaking is certainly a bonus. And yeah, it's got that, but that does make it awkward to fit correctly. And look, there's the other little locating pin, which goes there. I'm going to remove that as well because obviously it needs clocking. Again, it might pull out, or I might have to smash it out, but hopefully pull out. Right, after quickly looking at the engine, I reckon that angle, which is slightly going towards the engine, is fine because the oil return is this side of the engine, so that's where that's pointing. So it should make it easier while being enough to clear, no bother at all, and still be able to do up the bolts and whatever for a flange. So now I got to put it back in, and this one is where it gets sometimes tricky. Make sure the seal isn't dry. This one I've just removed, so it's not dry, and it's a brand new turbo. but gently push it in equally as much as you can until you can see where the circlip goes in, and then let the circlip do the rest. This one looks like it's going to be pretty simple, but you've got to be careful again, because if you get it right on the piss and then the circlip, either the circlip or your pushing is smashing it against the compressor housing, you're going to bugger up the turbo. So let me just have a look at this one. That looks right on the money, very easy. It probably wouldn't have even needed those taps, but just to be on the safe side, this side was slightly higher, so I just tapped it there and there to make sure it sat level with that. Now I should hopefully be able to put the circlip back on, and job done. Let me try. This is why it's fucking difficult if you're not using this, because even with this, it's taken some effort to turn that. Imagine trying to compress that with your bare hands. Unless you're the world's strongest man and have got damn good circuit pliers, it ain't no easy task. It's frustrating as fuck. This is another tricky thing with these, getting it back in, because it's so tight, you might not even be able to get it all the way. You notice I only got this one most of the way, so now I'll just tap that with the screwdriver and hammer and it'll pop into place. As long as you've got the rest of it right, it will sit in the right place, no problem. And we're done. Another thing worth doing, well, you can tell by it spinning that there's no touching or anything, but if you're a bit paranoid, and I am sometimes, you can easily, now it's in as good as, loosen it a bit by compressing the circlip enough and then releasing it again, and that will sit it in place. I'm going to do that this time, because personally, looking at this bottom bit, I'm not 1000% if that is seated all the way in. It probably is, because it looks equal all the way around, but paranoia tells me I'm going to do that just to be on the safe side. But I'm not going to film that bit, because you've already seen me do it 3 times. And that is the turbo correctly clocked for this engine. To be honest, I'm not 100% if I need to slightly reclock it until we've got the oil feed and return and whatever's on, but I've built this car, as you've probably seen over the videos, to be pretty easy to work on. So doing this again, not a big deal, especially now I've removed those pins. It's even easier to get off. So, but hopefully this is fine. Next job is clutch and flywheel. Because this engine is going to be no more than about 300 pound-foot in a lightweight car, standard clutch for one of these should handle it no problem. I didn't have a standard clutch, so I thought, you know what, because it's cheap, I mean this is literally £200, I bought a single mass conversion kit. So it's a single mass flywheel, a clutch, and it's totally complete. So it comes with a slave cylinder and even all the bolts. So it's cheap, like real cheap. So, and supposedly it's good quality and can handle as much as the OE stuff can. Hopefully that's true. You know, it remains to be seen. And when I go for bigger power, I'd have no choice but going for a better clutch anyway, and probably a different flywheel. But at £200, it was the correct solution for this at the moment. This flywheel, single mass versus the standard dual mass, but because it's not meant to be an uprated flywheel, it shouldn't be any lighter. Probably isn't, but I'll be interested to find out. So, seeing as this car did have the dual mass on it, which honestly I didn't realise, otherwise I might have just bought a fucking clutch instead, because that dual mass looks really good. But anyway, another story. I'm going to weigh them both and we'll have a look. I know neither of them are light, but we'll see if one's heavier than the other. 10.4 kilos for the single mass, which is not that bad, actually lighter than I thought it'd be. And almost unsurprisingly, about the same, 10.3 that's showing. And realistically, as soon as that had a plastic bag and grease and all that on it, and that's the dry one, realistically they're the same. So yeah, but that also shows why generally a lot of these VW Audi tuners aren't fussed about fitting a lightweight flywheel, aren't fussed about running the dual mass. You see these on even cars making, you know, 500 plus horsepower. And the reason is, they're not actually that heavy. Just over 10 kilos isn't a light flywheel, but in all things considered, it's not that heavy either. And it's light for a dual mass, because some dual masses are heavy. That's the flywheel and clutch done. Hopefully it holds out okay. Hopefully what they meant by handling the same as the standard one isn't that it can only handle exactly the standard power, when it can handle as much as the standard clutch. That's what the claims are saying. I mean, I have seen it written by the companies, so I presume they're not lying. But for the money, it looks good, so let's hope they're right. I reckon it should be okay, especially in a super light car like this. It's a lot less of an issue than Ultimate Heavy. So that's another job ticked off the list. Just got to do the slave cylinder, which goes in there, but that can be done after, because diff and everything is welding anyway. I've got the gearbox apart. It's quite simple to take apart. Obviously it needs to come apart so the diff can be welded. It's pretty easy. It's just a load of bolts, and then you pull and the top half comes off, and then you can weld it. Unfortunately, I am not going to weld it myself, not because I can't, because I've welded loads of diffs, but there was a certain way Thomas did it, and I can't remember why or how. I can't remember if he removed it to do it, or did it in situ, or what. I just can't remember, so I don't want to fucking do it and take the risk that I've made some daft mistake. And it's literally like a 10-minute job, so I'm gonna wait till Thomas gets back. Unfortunately, he's not gonna be back here for 4 days, 5 days, probably 5 days. So this is now stuck for a little bit until he comes back. These are hardtop mounts for the hardtop, unsurprisingly. Basically, the factory hardtop mounts, they're fucking expensive. They are all the money, stupid money. The hardtop's bad enough. I couldn't justify spending, you know, hundreds of pounds on the hardtop fitting kit. And because of that, I was thinking I'll just make some myself. Then I realised Rogue Motorsport, who have always done a lot of Mark III MR2 track cars, they have made solid hardtop mounts. I knew they'd made them in the past, but I didn't know if they still made them. I didn't know what they cost, anything. So I dropped them a line, and it turns out, yeah, they had them in stock. They were 90 quid delivered. It's like a fucking no-brainer. So they arrived. They even came next day. I didn't even order them until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and they still came next day. So that's awesome. So they are going to go on, but obviously to put them on, I need to get the engine to not fall on the floor. I might just actually lie the engine down on the table, put the gearbox on the floor, lie the engine down, because there's no reason not to. That's next little job complete. Cutting the accessory bracket in half, because, well, not running power steering, because these cars run electric power steering as standard, so you don't need the power steering pump. And not using aircon, because fuck aircon, this is the UK. So yeah, really only need the alternator, so the bracket can be way smaller, which is nice. I mean, that alone is 5 kilos or so, not loads, but it's extra space taken up for no reason. So yeah, give it a quick wire wheel, and it bolts here somewhere, here, like this, like that. Because obviously normally it goes right down to all of this shit, but just that now with the alternator on. Happy days. Again, there's something else that's making me love these engines. Yeah, it does stand up on its own. Stood up well enough that I could happily unstrap it from the lift, and then I used the strap that we was using on the lift to strap it to here, just so it can't go anywhere. And now it can stay there until the gearbox is done, and I've still got use of a table, which is handy. So I can wheel this out the way, drop the car back down, and I reckon I'm going to do the hardtop mounts next, just because, well, they're easy, so why not. First job you've got to do to fit solid hardtop mounts is remove the OE ones. I've done them before on like MX-5s, and they can be a wanker because it's star sockets, so it's not the best fucking thread for when things are tight. They round off far too easy. But on these, went all the way through, so 3, 6, 9, 11 of them come out no problem. This one would not come out, rounded to fuck no matter how hard I tried. So I had to resort to getting the angle grinder and chopping them out to little pieces until I could get it off, basically. So I got to be super careful what you cut to not cut the roof to pieces. But thankfully these things are always like cast aluminium, so once you've weakened them you can snap them off. And once it was weak enough, which unfortunately meant I had to cut nearly everything else off just to get a good enough access to the bit I needed, I could break it off, and it left with the knackered stud poking out. So then just some mole grips, get out, no bother. But yeah, that took way longer than it needed to, just because of that. I mean, I've took the roof off, look, you know, until number 12 bolt I was doing it in situ because it's a lot easier. Instead I had to struggle getting the roof off on my own, put it on the ground without damaging it and so on, just because of this one bastard bolt. I'm used to it from MX-5 hardtops because they always do it, but I was hoping it weren't going to be an issue. Turns out it was. That is the hardtop mounts done, and yeah, I'm really happy with them. Obviously they're built for the race cars, so they're not meant to fit with the trim, but literally all it took to fit it complete with this trim was taking out a tiny bit of that, and apart from that, it comes on, you have to pull these off to, you know, get it all in place really, but apart from that, bang on. So really nice. The rear quarter trims, there's not really worth refitting them. You could, but you'd have to chop so much, it's like fuck that. So I don't care anyway. Like I said, everything behind the seats is fully stripped anyway, so that suits it down to the fucking ground. But fitment wise, bang on, really good. Way better than the ones I bought for the MX-5, and that was a big brand, fancy and quite expensive one, and they didn't fit anywhere near as nicely as these did. I was kind of worried about these. It would take a lot of jiggling to make it, you know, make them all work right and sit right, but no, it was fucking lovely. So yeah, great success. Final thing for this video is the breather system. A lot of cars from the factory, the breather system is a bit shit, mostly because they're not built, you know, for performance reasons. You know, it can cope with the standard power, but you know, that's about it. These though, to be fair, have a really good setup. It's got a crankcase breather that's big, like 19mm ID from the cam cover, and unlike quite a lot of setups, it's got an external return and it's big. I mean, really, if you want to be really big, it's huge. But even the OEM thing is 19mm, but it's only 19mm on the end. If you cut the last little bit off, that is 25mm ID, which is a big return. So yeah, it's good. Thing is, most people, the vast majority of people, and it's like, it don't annoy me, but it's like, people work on cars, they modify their cars and whatever, and they don't really understand what they're fucking doing. Thing is, right, this one here, yes, of course it helps, you know, let out pressure from the crankcase if need be, but the main duty of it is a fucking return. But most people just run this and everything straight to a fucking catch tank, and that's it. So anything that comes out goes into the catch tank, the end, it stays in the catch tank. And then you get people going, oh, my engine uses such and such amount of oil, you know, fills the catch tank in such and such amount of time. Is that right? And it's like, well, it probably wouldn't if you didn't just have it everything to a catch tank. If you had it to a proper return on the block, it'd be fine. And that's how proper setups are. And then again, often these are the same people who's got a line running still to the intake pipe from the catch tank. It's like, fuck that. You've literally got the worst of all worlds there. You've got no return, and you've got it sucking to the inlet, which ends up filling your inlet side with oily, fumey shite. But what I'd prefer to do, the best setup, in my opinion, for a modified car, as long as, you know, unless you go in super fancy with air pumps and dry sumps and all that shit, is a decent size catch tank with breathers, and have this one, cam cover. You might have two cam cover ones, you might have whatever, but whatever your cam cover setup is, really you want at least one 19mm sort of size. Anything less than that on a tuned, you know, 4-cylinder car, I'd be a bit, you know, concerned. You look at these big power V8s and stuff, and they'll have like 2 outlets twice the size of that. One, at least one on each rocker cover. So, you know, one like that really is minimum. And a lot of cars don't come even with one that size. They'll end up with one tiny little thing and whatever, because they're just not built for that reason. But as soon as you start tuning cars, you need it, because crankcase pressure is shit for everything. A good example of crankcase pressure and doing this shit right uses no oil, or, you know, keeps an engine a lot happier and healthier, is my shitty old Volvo. Volvo red block, ancient old design. It comes with no cam cover breather as standard at all. It's all a bit shit, and it's one that, you know, people know has crankcase ventilation issues, and it also has oil use issues with a lot of people. But mine used to, I used to check oil, you know, practically daily anyway, but it never used any. Even though it was a piece of shit 250,000+ mile old engine and running 30+ psi boost, didn't use any oil. And the reason was because I'd made a good breather system. I'd modified the cam cover setup so it actually had a breather first out the oil filler, and then out of a, you know, had a bung welded on, and I had it so it went into the catch tank, and then there was an outlet at the bottom of the catch tank which allowed it to return to a big breather on the side of the block, which the Volvos come with as standard too. But in, like, on modified cars, most people don't even use this. On the Volvos, they never ever have it as a return. They just have it as another top, you know, going to a top port of a fucking catch tank. It's like they don't understand how this shit works. So yeah, the Volvo worked brilliant for that, and this is much the same. So what I'm going to do, this is the catch tank that was on my Turbo CLK. It will go something along the lines of this. So you've got 19mm to one of these, then I weld, or get Thomas to weld a fitting, a big one, on either the side or the bottom or something, so it can return via here. And this is also big enough that it's not always a return. It can either be, there can either be oil returning, or it can be breathing out, or it can be doing a bit of both, because to be honest, your engine would pretty much be broken. But that much oil returning to it, that can't breathe out, you know what I mean? That'd be a lot of oil. So your engine's usually broke if that's the issue. And yeah, and then one of these, or two of these, or three of these as separate breathers. But I want to weld a return so it can go something along the lines of that. I might have this, this can sit a bit higher, because it doesn't matter about height, because the only reason it will push oil out of there is if there's actual fucking pressure. So a height isn't a problem. So I'll have it, you know, here or so, and then a return slightly downhill, whatever, as long as it ain't uphill, this one, it'd be great. Slightly downhill to that. So yeah, that is the end of this video, because fucking hell, I don't even know how much content you've got, and this is probably going to be a long one even when I cut the fucking shit out of it. But yeah, I think that's enough for this. I know the car hasn't started again, but well, you said how close we are now. It's got to start in the next video. The next video, you'll see me doing the anti-roll bars and the springs, and then it'll be putting the engine in and fucking starting it, I think. Yeah, should we say within 7 days of you seeing this video, there will be the video when this thing running. I can't guarantee driving, because that depends when Thomas does my drive shafts. Although that probably wouldn't take him too long. But certainly fucking running. So yeah, hope you liked it. And as always, like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, fucking spread the word. You know, show everybody on your Facebook pages or whatever. But yeah, it's getting good. Well, it's always been getting good, but it's getting better every time. See you later.